great northwards to the Rockbound Coast and streaming live in HD worldwide at foxbangor.com. More people choose Good Morning Maine.
Hello everyone, today on Good Morning Maine, Maine's elected officials are reacting to the attacks on Iran. We'll hear from them coming up. Plus, a man has been taken into custody in connection with the active vandalism at the corner store in Orrington, and nurses with Northern Maine Medical Center are pushing for a final contract after 2 years of negotiating. Good morning and welcome to Good Morning Maine. I'm Janessa Bishop. Craig Colson is off for the day. We'll have those stories and much more coming up, and as always, we thank you for joining us. It is fairly cold outside this morning, but it seems like it'll be a nice and sunny day. Let's start off this morning by getting a first check of our forecasts. Devin Biggs joins us now.
Alrighty, Janessa, thank you very much. Happy Monday. Some advisories posted. The cold weather advisory and small craft advisories will be expiring this morning. After a rather cold morning and some active surf along the coast, a freezing spray advisory will be dropping early this afternoon. Meanwhile, again, we've been rather clear and we'll see a lot of sunshine today. Some passing clouds will also be seen as we head towards the afternoon period. As we do zoom things out, it's been very quiet across the region. You have to look further off towards the south and west for any kind of activity. Again, we'll have some developing clouds during the afternoon period today. You can see those farther off towards the north. We'll have some more clouds developing as we head towards your Tuesday. Again, as we watch for a system further down toward the south as we head towards Tuesday night into parts of early Wednesday or so. But again, gusty winds will be a thing as they do reach up close to 20 miles per hour. And again, they will back off as we head towards Monday night. But again, as we head towards your Tuesday, some gusty winds will begin to develop yet again. So for today, low 20s, overall a partly cloudy sky, and that southwest wind getting up to about 5 to 10 miles per hour. But a lot of sunshine today, some clouds developing during the afternoon, temperatures reaching for 20. Your full 5-day forecast is coming up. Janessa?
Thank you, Devin. We'll see you a little later on. Well, first this morning, the big question now is what's next for Iran? Will a more pro-American government take the place of the Ayatollah? Experts say it is complicated. Here's ABC's Allison Cossack.
This morning, celebrations around the world.
USA! USA!
In New York, hundreds gathering at the UN before walking to Times Square in support of the U.S. strikes on Iran.
I personally cannot wait to go back to visit my country without fear of getting arrested, getting killed, getting tortured for not wanting to cover my hair.
In Los Angeles, celebrations mixed with anxiety about the future.
We want our families first and foremost safe, and I think that that's the anxiousness.
Across Iran, celebrations large and small. But in Tehran's main square, a likely organized demonstration of support for the regime, including chants of death to America. With Iran's supreme leader and his top military brass dead, the question's now, what's next, and who replaces the Iranian regime if it falls?
3 or 4 million people pour into the streets. I think that the regime will have to step back. There will be fissures and breaks within the military, and then we'll be into the next phase of getting rid of this regime and moving into a new one, something that people have dreamed of for many, many years.
The potential players in the possible succession scenario could include Reza Pahlavi, the son of the Shah overthrown by the Islamic Revolution in 1979. But other possibilities from inside Iran could be the late Ayatollah's second oldest child, Mojtaba Khomeini, and Ali Larijani, a former military officer in the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC.
It's important to point out just how the elimination of Khomeini is good for the world, the region, and for the people in Iran. Or are they going to be even more hardline? Because most analysts, and more importantly, the intelligence community, believes it's the IRGC. It's likely going to completely take over. And to some estimations, they are more hardline than even the supreme leader was.
It could be weeks or months before we know whether Iranians will rise up to demand a new kind of leadership in their country. Meanwhile, back here in the U.S., events are planned across the country tonight to protest U.S. military intervention. Allison Cossack, ABC News, New York.
Lawmakers in Washington are pushing for votes on war powers resolutions. Fox News' Chad Pergram has more from Washington.
Congressional Democrats plan to force a war powers vote on Iran even before the recent strikes. Virginia Democrat Tim Kaine says under the Constitution, only Congress can declare war unless there's an imminent threat.
This is an illegal war. I have a war powers resolution queued up for vote this week, and I'm encouraging my colleagues to assert the constitutional power vested in the legislative branch. More importantly, though, haven't we learned something from 25 years of war in the Middle East? Have we learned nothing?
The war powers resolution requires the president notify Congress of hostilities within 48 hours. A president has 60 to 90 days to withdraw troops without coming to Congress.
Very troubling is most congressional Democrats, as you brought up, they're going to line up next week and say, we don't want the president to have any authority to defend the United States of America against the imminent threat of Iran.
But a few Republicans want Congress to vote. That includes Kentucky Republicans Rand Paul and Thomas Massie, along with Ohio Republican Warren Davidson. The strikes come as the Department of Homeland Security still lacks money from Congress. The shutdown is entering its third week.
It is outrageous that they continue to stall on this because their political ideologies disagree with keeping Americans safe.
There's concern about domestic terrorism. The House plans to vote this week on funding DHS. Down the road, there could also be a request for Congress to approve money to help a reformed Iran or to restock the military. House and Senate-wide briefings are set for Tuesday. Lawmakers will hear from Secretary of State Marco Rubio and the Director of the CIA, John Ratcliffe. In Washington, Chad Pergram, Fox News.
Maine's elected officials are reacting to the attacks on Iran. Governor Janet Mills said in part, quote, Iran must not be allowed to develop a nuclear weapon, but the president's unilateral actions put us all at risk. U.S. Senator Angus King said in part, quote, I hope for the best, especially for our troops who may be placed in harm's way, but fear that this precipitous action may have unnecessarily put them at risk without sufficient consideration of the significant possibility of the prolonged and destructive conflict. U.S. Senator Susan Collins said in part, quote, the Iranian regime's pursuit of nuclear weapons, ballistic missile development, and support for terrorist proxies pose serious threats to America's national security and that of our allies, as well as to stability in the Middle East. U.S. Representative Jared Golden said in part, quote, it's regrettable that negotiations to halt Iran's nuclear program have stalled. Having made the decision to use his Article 2 powers to initiate these strikes, President Trump is now required by the War Powers Act to consult with Congress within 24 hours. U.S. Representative Shelley Pingree also says this latest action puts global stability at risk.
This president came into office saying, I will end the forever wars. Those were misguided. You won't see that from me anymore. And he's been going in the opposite direction. We've gotten no briefing, no rationale, no information about this.
Political candidates are also reacting. 2nd District candidate Matt Dunlap said in part, quote, this is an illegal war that no one wants. That was started by a president who is out of control. Donald Trump promised the American people he'd keep us out of wars. He lied, end quote. U.S. House candidate Jordan Wood said in part, quote, President Trump's reckless and lawless strike on Iran is unconstitutional and a massive step toward another war that the American people do not want or support, end quote. Senate candidate Graham Plattner held an emergency anti-war protest in Brewer last night to speak out against the joint attack on Iran. He was joined by dozens of community members collectively rejecting the prospect of war in Iran. This comes as the U.S. military announced on Sunday that 3 American service members have been killed as a result of the operation. At least 5 more have been seriously injured, according to the U.S. Central Command. Plattner, who served in the United States Marine Corps and Army National Guard, says that this is the ultimate cost of war. He described the conflict with Iran as abuse of power by the Trump administration.
We cannot continue to act in this fashion. We cannot continue to get young Americans killed just to serve the interests of someone in power. That is not the way that we should be acting as a nation, and we need to be figuring out how do we claw that power back from the executive branch and put it back into the hands of those who deserve it constitutionally, which is Congress.
Ratner is urging Maine's congressional delegation to support a war powers resolution that would stop the president from continuing force against Iran without direct congressional authorization. Meanwhile, a man has been taken into custody in connection with the active vandalism at Burnt Cove Market in Stonington. According to the Hancock County Sheriffs, the evidence obtained throughout the course of the investigation led to the identification and the suspect in the issuance of a search warrant for Mark Valios of Deer Isle. According to Hancock County Sheriffs, he is charged with aggravated criminal mischief and possession of a firearm brought by a prohibited person. During the late night hours of March 1st and the early morning hours of March 2nd, the Sheriff's Office executed a search warrant at a residence in Deer Isle where Valios was taken into custody and more evidence was collected. Valios was transported to the Hancock County Jail, and his arraignment will be sometime today at Ellsworth District Court. An employee made the initial discovery on Sunday morning when they arrived at the market for their shift. The glass in the two front doors had been broken, leaving the area scattered with debris. A store manager tells us it doesn't appear that there was any damage inside the store, but the store is now cold and they're now making plans to repair those expensive doors. Unionized nurses with Northern Maine Medical Center in Fort Kent are continuing to push for a final contract after 2 years of negotiating. Union nurses were joined by a crowd of supporters during an event on Saturday as they released a letter that claims they have faced intimidation, bullying, and retaliation from hospital administration in their ongoing efforts to secure a contract. According to the Maine State Nurses Association, it's been over 2 years since Northern Maine Medical Center first formed their union and began bargaining in good faith for their first contract. We obtained a copy of the letter signed by more than 30 nurses. The letter highlights the initiative to organize their union was to protect themselves and their patients, not to punish any individuals or the hospital as a whole. In response to their efforts, the nurses claim they have been faced with years' worth of intimidation by hospital administration. The letter did not go into detail about those claims. We have reached out to the hospital administration for comment and are still waiting a response. The letter goes on to say the nursing staff continues to give everyone who comes to NMMC the best possible care, even as they fight to make the hospital the best place that it can be for everyone. The time now is 8:12. Coming up next on Good Morning Maine, lawmakers are pushing a piece of legislation that they say aims to lower health insurance costs. We'll hear from both sides ahead. But first, let's take another look at our forecast. For today, we have partly cloudy skies with highs around 20 degrees. Overnight tonight, mostly clear with temperatures dipping down to 0. And for tomorrow, partly cloudy and breezy, highs around 36. We'll be right back.
Big Tech is building AI to do everything humans can do, only faster, cheaper, and without us. True innovation should help us, not replace us. That's why a movement is growing to protect what's human and support common sense regulation on AI.
Get ready for mowing season, for hauling season, and exploring season. Get ready for tearing it up, cutting it down, and working all around season. Because it's bad boy season. All year long. Bad boy. Power, performance, attitude.
Come in and visit AMHG Works, Bangor's #1 gift shop, located at 36 Springer Drive in the Rennie's Plaza. We have special gifts for you, your furry companion, and that special someone you are in need of a gift for. It's worth a trip in for unique American-made gifts. Here at AMHG Works, everything is American-made, and we are open 7 days a week for your convenience. American-made home goods. We look forward to seeing you.
Big Tech is building AI to replace us, threatening our jobs, our families, and our way of life with zero public input or oversight. We should have a say. Tell your elected officials to protect what's human and support common sense regulation on AI.
Who'd you need this for? I wouldn't have lived this long if I discussed my clients.
You may not live long if you don't.
We do the job, we don't ask questions.
Hi, Dad. I'm gonna cook and then I have to go.
What?
My mind, it hasn't been right. I'm confusing time. No one can know my secret.
Memory of a Killer, all new tonight on Fox.
Healthcare more affordable for Mainers is getting pushback from one of the state's largest health systems. Our Doug Banks with that story.
It's intended to be impactful.
Lawmakers are pushing a piece of legislation they say aims to lower health insurance costs and reduce healthcare barriers. LD 2196 puts a cap on hospital charges to no more than 200% of the Medicare rates for the same service. The bill was crafted by the independent agency Maine Office of Affordable Health Care and is sponsored by Westbrook Representative Drew Katine.
The essence of this bill is that if we really want to lower costs, we have to come up with solutions that actually lower costs.
But Northern Light Health strongly opposes the bill. They say if passed, it would reduce commercial insurance payments to hospitals statewide by $1 billion a year, making Maine's healthcare system even more fragile.
We tend to be poorer, we tend to be more in debt, and we tend to have older hospitals than states across the country. And we are also preparing for a really uncertain future as the impact of H.R. 1, which is the One Big Beautiful Bill Act law, and the impact that that will have on the state's main care coverage and reduced insurance coverage in the state of Maine.
Northern Light Health is coming off a year where it shut down a major hospital in Waterville, and an audit reportedly found they lost $15 million last year. But even if these setbacks never happened, its position on LD 2196 would remain the same because
it will effectively deconstruct the infrastructure we have.
Ultimately, the current system is not sustainable for hospitals. That hospitals will not survive if people can't afford to use their services.
We absolutely understand and acknowledge that healthcare affordability is a challenge for the people of Maine. To effectively address that, we have to have the entire spectrum of the sources of the challenge part of the discussion.
Doug Banks reporting for ABC 7 and Fox 22 News.
Bill will be heard before the Health and Human Services Committee this coming Thursday. The time now is 8:17. After the break, crude oil prices rose more than 8% in the wake of the U.S.-Israeli attacks on Iran. We'll have more on that coming up. Plus, a celebration of life was held for the 2 Maine DOT employees who were killed while working. Those stories and more straight ahead on Good Morning Maine.
Rebound and recover with the Planet Fitness Blackhorn. Join now and unlock recovery amenities like Red Light. Incredible!
Get the PF Black Card for $1 down, $24.99 a month, and get your first month free. No commitment. Deal ends March 13th.
In winter, accidents can happen in an instant. From icy sidewalks to winter roads, there are close calls around every corner. And when a close call becomes something more, insurance companies won't always look out for you, but we will. For over 50 years, the law offices of Joe Bornstein have helped injured Mainers. Accidents happen to be our specialty. When it's more than a close call, call Joe.
You know, we can go into a room and have absolutely nothing in there, nothing on the windows, no color, no character, no tone to a room.
That's, I think, where we're strongest, is being able to help someone envision what's going to go in that window.
And we leave, it's totally transformed into something that the customer wants it to be. We've often been told we make a room look better just by leaving it.
Whether you can pinpoint the problem or can't quite put your finger on it, the friendly professionals from Coastal Auto Parts can help point you in the right direction. With Maine's largest network of parts, you can trust your vehicle will have what it needs to get you to the moments that matter most. Because Napa knows the keys to a winning team. With 30 locations in Maine, Coastal Auto Parts helps keep our communities running with quality parts and helpful people. That's Napa know-how. Coastal Auto Parts is owned and operated by a Maine family that cares.
Rebound and recover with the Planet Fitness Blackhorn. Join now and unlock recovery amenities like Red Light. Incredible!
Get the PF Black Card for $1 down, $24.99 a month, and get your first month free. No commitment. Deal ends March 13th.
January, 2 Maine Department of Transportation employees were struck by a vehicle and killed while doing their job. On Saturday, a celebration of their lives. Our Callie Warren has the story.
This is the nightmare that most commissioners, most entities that work in the right-of-way worry about day to day.
James Brown and Dwayne Campbell died while doing one of the many things those close to them say they loved, working to keep Mainers safe on the roadways.
Dwayne and Jimmy's friends, family, and co-workers say they were both good friends and good guys, always out on the roads, even on the coldest winter or the hottest summer days. If there was work to be done, their vehicles were at the shed.
Killed in a January crash inside an interstate construction zone in Waterville, their colleagues and loved ones made sure their memory stays alive. In their memorial service Saturday, a sea of Maine DOT branded vests, exactly like the ones they wore every day, showed proof of camaraderie and community.
There, that feels better. I'm home now. Today is about honoring and recognizing what Dwayne and Jimmy did for you, your families, your neighbors, and every day when they put one of these on and walked out of the Fairfield camp.
Before their memorial service, a convoy rolled out of the Maine DOT Training Center in Fairfield. Work vehicles from Calais to Vermont and everywhere in between traveled to Augusta, their lights on, their license plates bearing Brown and Campbell's names.
No sign, barrier system, attenuator truck can provide the same level of safety that just a prudent driver can.
The Maine DOT reminds all drivers to be cautious, especially of those working on or in roadways.
Grief is the price of love, and the depth of our grief today speaks to the depth of our love for Dwayne and Jimmy.
Callie Warren reporting for ABC 7 and Fox 22 News.
Time now is 8:22. Let's get a full look at our forecast. Meteorologist Devin Biggs is in with the latest.
Alrighty, Janessa, thank you very much. That cold weather advisory and small craft advisory will be dropping at around 7 a.m. this morning. Freezing spray advisory expiring this afternoon at around 1 p.m. Wave heights at around 2 to 4 feet according to the buoys, while farther out towards sea at around 3 to even 9 feet, so still a little bit active in some areas. Meanwhile, it's been very clear outside this morning, and that really allowed temperatures to fall. And in fact, you had to look farther out toward the south and west for any kind of activity with the system tracking off towards the east. But meanwhile, for us today, we'll be under a partly cloudy sky. You can see some of the activity that will be dissipating later on tonight after some clouds developing, while later on tonight, overall, a mostly clear sky. And as we head towards tomorrow, again, not too bad, some clouds developing during the afternoon. And again, Tuesday night, some snow developing that will continue into parts of Wednesday. And again, once we head towards early Wednesday morning, this will be getting out of here. As for snowfall, here's what we're looking at with that system. A narrow line from Augusta over towards parts of Calais, around 2 to 4 inches possible. Farther off towards the north, around 1 to even 3 inches possible. We'll keep an eye on that as it does develop. But in the meantime, some gusty winds reaching up to about 20 miles per hour today. It does back off later on tonight, but then tomorrow the gusty winds do pick up again, reaching up to about 20 to even 25 miles per hour. So for today, we do have lower 20s, partly cloudy. That southwest wind at about 5 to 10 miles per hour. We may even see some higher gusts up to 20 miles per hour. Overnight, mostly clear, 0 for the overnight low, and that south wind at around 5 miles per hour. And then tomorrow, mid-30s, partly cloudy and breezy, and that southwest wind at about 25 miles per hour. Let's check out your extended forecast, showing a partly cloudy sky for your Wednesday. Highs, look at this, in the upper 40s. And then Thursday, we have partly cloudy, highs in the mid-40s. And then snow chances for your Friday, highs in the mid-30s.
At Maine's #1 Kia dealer, Darling's Kia, you can't miss in 2026. Drive a brand new all-wheel drive Sportage for only $299 a month, or buy a new Kia SUV for under $20,000. Plus, every new Kia comes with our 10-year or 100,000-mile warranty. The best in the business. You can't miss this and more at Darling's Kia. The best cars, the best prices, and the best warranty. You'll do better at Darling's.
Family owned and operating in the Bangor area for more than 10 years. Crosby's Welding is here to help you. We specialize in steel, stainless steel, and aluminum welding and fabrication. We serve many of the local industries from Maine lobstermen to the commercial trucking industry and everything in between. Fully mobile on-site construction services right down to custom signs and fire pits. Fast, friendly, reliable service. Give us a call today for a free estimate, 974-7815.
Hank's Husqvarna is your trusted full-line Husqvarna dealer, offering you everything you need for your outdoor projects. From high-performance lawn tractors and zero-turn mowers to chainsaws, trimmers, battery-powered and powerful snow blowers, we have just what you need. Every piece of equipment is fully set up, serviced, and ready for use by our certified Husqvarna technician. And all sales are backed by our in-house Husqvarna warranty. For parts, service, or new equipment sales, make your way to Hank's Husqvarna in Carmel or Newport.
It's an old-fashioned game that's growing in popularity.
It's just something that the community has always done. It's kind of the older crowd, but the younger crowd's actually getting drawn into it.
So grab your bingo dauber and come along as we participate in the Carmel Snowmobile Club's Bingo Night. Tonight on Fox 22 News at 10.
So what's it like being a doctor in Port Wynn?
This town is ridiculous.
Come on, you're starting to like it here.
Best Medicine, all new Tuesdays on Fox.
Just hours after the U.S. attacks on Iran began, police in Texas responded to a mass shooting in a popular nightlife district, a shooting with potential links to Iran. ABC's Faith Abube has that story.
Gunfire outside a popular bar in Austin, Texas this weekend, now being linked potentially to terrorism. Police say the shooter first opened fire from his SUV at patrons outside the bar.
Oh my God!
Then got out with a rifle and shot people in the street. 2 people were killed, 14 others wounded. People inside sheltering for safety. Sources say this photo obtained by ABC News shows the suspect, a 53-year-old naturalized U.S. citizen originally from Senegal in West Africa. His sweatshirt with the words "Property of Allah." Sources say his undershirt also had the word Iran with an Iranian flag.
There were indicators that on the subject and in his vehicle that indicate potential nexus to terrorism.
Within 1 minute of the first call for help, police confronting the gunman, fatally shooting him. 3 victims remain in critical condition overnight.
We have families that are at hospital rooms waiting for outcomes from surgery. That's the reality of what we're dealing with today.
And while officials try to determine whether avenging Iran was a motive for this attack, they're also looking into whether the suspect had mental health issues. Faith Abube, ABC News, New York.
Meanwhile, crude oil prices spike in the wake of the U.S.-Israeli attacks on Iran. Crude oil prices rose more than 8% to $72.57 a barrel on Sunday night. Global benchmark Brent crude oil jumped about 9% to $79.41 a barrel. Oil tanker traffic in the Strait of Hormuz has paused while shipping companies take proactive measures. Industry analysts say prices will be affected by how tanker traffic rebounds and the extent of the Iranian retaliation against the U.S. and its allies. OPEC, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, has agreed to boost output by 206,000 barrels a day starting in April. However, Iran is part of OPEC, and it's not clear who will control Iran's involvement following the death of its supreme leader and top 40 officials. OPEC analysts also say a long war could lead to oil prices jumping to more than $100 a barrel, which could sharply increase prices on gas and oil products in the U.S. NASA discusses future Artemis missions. The Artemis II mission, with the goal of carrying 4 astronauts around the moon, is expected to take off in the coming weeks after resolving a helium flow issue that caused the rocket to be rolled back into the vehicle assembly building. Artemis III, designed to land astronauts on the moon's lunar south pole by 2028, is now expected to launch in 2027, but without that moon landing. As for Artemis IV, an attempt for the actual lunar landing will be made in 2028. NASA's team spoke on the upcoming projects and the need to work efficiently in order to accomplish each mission. The Artemis II mission is not expected to take place until early April. Coming up on the second half of the newscast, a Lunar New Year celebration was put on by the Chinese and American Friendship Association of Maine. This and more as Good Morning Maine continues.
A few weeks ago, I went down to the basement to see what was happening with the boilers and opened the door, and there was about 12 to 14 inches of water in our basement. I knew who to call right away, and that was Bouchard. They were here within a half hour. They work well with our insurance company. They're very, very efficient, and all I have to do is call them any time of day. They're going to take care of me. Our business is our life, and that's why I don't hesitate to recommend them to other people.
A sharp pain in his chest. He knew it was his heart, but 2 hours from the big city hospital could tragically mean the end. But it wasn't. Thanks to Senator Susan Collins' tireless fight for Maine's rural hospitals. Because of Senator Collins' work, his local hospital had recently received up-to-date diagnostic equipment and upgraded facilities, all paid for with new federal funding. Lives are being saved. Call and thank our Senator Susan Collins for delivering this lifeline for Maine.
You're watching Fox 22, Bangor.
The town of Searsport's Route 1 reconstruction project has been completed for over a year now, but one town official says it's still impacting some businesses. Town manager James Gilway says that the $18 million project that began in the spring of 2023 needed to be done. A reason being pedestrian safety, because prior to construction, he says downtown sidewalks were not compliant with the Americans with Disabilities Act. But he does acknowledge that a couple businesses are continuing to feel those effects of the major project over a year after its fall completion of 2024. He remains optimistic, though, that this coming summer will provide a much-needed boost.
I know it's slow, and I know I still have a couple of businesses downtown that are struggling, but I'm very optimistic this summer will provide a really good source of revenue for business downtown.
Now let's turn things right back over to meteorologist Devin Biggs.
Alrighty, Janessa, thank you very much. Happy Monday. Some advisories posted. The cold weather advisory and small craft advisories will be expiring this morning. After a rather cold morning and some active surf along the coast, a freezing spray advisory will be dropping early this afternoon. Meanwhile, again, we've been rather clear and we'll see a lot of sunshine today. Some passing clouds will also be seen as we head towards the afternoon period. As we do zoom things out, it's been very quiet across the region. You have to look further off towards the south and west for any kind of activity. Again, we'll have some developing clouds during the afternoon period today. You can see those farther off towards the north. We'll have some more clouds developing as we head towards your Tuesday. Again, as we watch for a system further down toward the south as we head towards Tuesday night and the parts of early Wednesday or so. But again, gusty winds will be a thing as they do reach up close to 20 miles per hour. And again, they will back off as we head towards Monday night. But again, as we head towards your Tuesday, some gusty winds will begin to develop yet again. So for today, low 20s, overall a partly cloudy sky, and that southwest wind getting up to about 5 to 10 miles per hour. But a lot of sunshine today, some clouds developing during the afternoon, temperatures reaching for 20. Your full 5-day forecast is coming up. Janessa?
Alrighty, thank you, Devin. Well, it's the year of the horse, and yesterday folks in Westbrook gathered for a Lunar New Year celebration. Event organizers say this is a lucky year and a time for color, food, song, and dance, as well as honoring cultural traditions. The event included a variety of family-friendly activities like Chinese language lessons, traditional Chinese games, paintings, and much more.
People from China who have come to Maine like to come and see a bit of their home culture. People from South Asia, from Taiwan, Chinese Americans, and even non-Chinese Americans who find that they want their children to see something international, or they want to show something cool that they saw on a trip overseas before.
The event was put on by the Chinese and American Friendship Association of Maine and concluded with a dance, drumming, and martial arts performance by Chinese Folk Art Workshop of Boston. Well, still to come here this morning, Jack Webb with sports. Don't go away.
To win every single day. Today's the day. Let's celebrate. $1 million every year for the rest of my life, and maybe yours too.
There are so many fun things to do in Maine. Now you can enjoy more for less. Check out half-off deals from foxbangor.com.
Little Miss Davis Sweets and Treats, a home-based business that specializes in homemade baked goods. Everything I bake is made to order. I specialize in baking homemade fudge, brownies, cupcakes, giant cookies, and large gingerbread men.
There's a limited supply available. It's on sale right now. Save with half-off deals from foxbangor.com.
We're lucky to live in Maine. We have a wealth of natural resources, hardworking people, and time for the things that matter. Mechanical Services is all about Maine, with energy efficiency that protects our environment and helps businesses grow. Preventive maintenance and energy solutions that save money. How Maine is that? Mechanical Services. We're everywhere you are in Maine.
Roto-Rooter has served the greater Bangor area and beyond for 35 years, offering plumbing, hydrojetting, snaking, descaling, video inspection, and grease interceptor cleaning services. For all your residential and commercial clogs, call Roto-Rooter today, 990-1234.
And away go troubles down the drain. Roto-Rooter.
Your goal is to put items in the correct order before, in between, definitely after.
This is the perfect line. Weekdays at 10 on Fox 22.
Welcome back in, folks. It was state championship weekend for high school basketball across the state. We've got all the action for you. We might as well dive into it. Our first game of the day is the Class S girls state title between North Champion Wisdom, South Champion Valley. Getting things started early were the Cavaliers. Here's Delia Hill in the corner, contested three, it's good. Valley up early. They get right back into it. This time, Elena Hartwell sends a laser of a pass to Riley Clark under the net, and it's as easy as that. Add two more. Pioneers get going offensively when Ava Lerman handles up top, sidestep, launches, and knocks down a big three. Second quarter, Valley up big. Kristen Bigelow is off the mark on the reverse, but there to clean it up is Mariah Bean. She puts it off the glass and in. Then they drive again. This time it's blocked by Peyton Roy. Great help side defense, but the next possession, Hartwell once again rips a three. She's got it. She pulls out the bow and arrow, and Valley has it well in hand finally in the fourth quarter. Hartwell with an impressive bucket through traffic, and Valley goes on to win their second straight state championship game.
It's great. I mean, winning last year was awesome. First big ball in girls history, then coming back out here and to do it for our community and for us, it's great. I love it.
SS boys is the Valley boys taking on Mason Pelletier and the Easton Bears opening up in the first. Valley's Harry Lewis shoots one down court to Levi Short. He misses the layup, but fear not, his guy Colin Nicholas comes in and finishes the job. And then it'll be Lewis with another feed, this time to Fisher Tewksbury, who puts it up off the glass and in for 2 more. Bears down big, need to get it going, and they do as Raiden Chakran knocks down this 3-pointer to help keep Easton in the game. End of the first, Nicholas repays the favor to Lewis on the play earlier and drains the corner tray. Now closing in on the end of the half. Mason Pelletier trying to close the gap. Deep 2-pointer, foot on the line, still knocks it down regardless. Pelletier opens the second half for the Bears with a tough take to the net for 2 points. But this sweet shot from Levi Short late in the corner extends the lead to 20, and the Cavaliers would hold on to win their first title in 10 years by a score 77-46.
It's a real feeling, honestly. I love this team. You know, it's been a long 5 years, and to come out with that gold ball, it's awesome.
Kicking off the Class D action was the girls. Penobscot Valley looking for a second title, taking on Mount Abram from the south. First quarter, Brooklyn Raymond from beyond the arc. Howlers lead 7-5. Mount Abram answers, though, as Jenna Osgood lays it in to tie things up at 9 later in the first, but PVHS would go on another run. It's Raymond again from 3, this time from the corner. The Howlers lead 18-12, but Mount Abram would storm back yet again. They work the ball around until it finds Shakiri Savage, who puts it up and in to take a 19-18 lead. They'd be up at the break. To the second half we go. Lila Cummings on the break, and no one stops ball. She takes it coast to coast, makes it 31-26 Howlers. Right after, it's Abby Farley. She takes the 3. She lets the 3 fly. PVHS is running away with it, up 8. Howlers were coasting in the fourth until you blinked, and Evelyn Pepin steal and score made it a 3-point game. But the Howlers wouldn't be denied a second straight title as Cummings blocks the potential game-tying 3, and PVHS wins the Class D state championship game.
Definitely was a lot more difficult. Yeah, we were battle tested throughout the season. I mean, we played the two of the best teams in the state, and I mean, we were competitive with them each time, and so we knew we were battle tested coming into the tournament. We just had to keep proving ourselves.
The work we put in all year, starting even in the summer, pushing through a long season is what it is, and doing all that work.
Rounding out Class D, it was the Machias boys taking on Monmouth Academy. Monmouth started hot, but the Bulldogs were trying to fight back as Mickey Fitzsimmons feeds Wyatt Hunter, who lays it up and in to cut the Monmouth lead in half. Here was the story of the game, though. Levi Lavadiri, he knocks down the deep 3 to make it 13-9 the next possession. It's Lavadiri again, this time in transition. Bombs away. He knocks down another to make it 16-9. He was on fire tonight. It's Lavadiri again this time. He takes it to the rack, finishes through traffic. Monmouth up 28-14 at the break. They would hold a double-digit lead for the entire middle part of the game, but here come the Bulldogs. Fitzsimmons is going to lay it in, and just like that, Machias only down a possession in the fourth, but you guessed it, Lavadiri is there to stop the bleeding. He recorded his thousandth point tonight as a junior while recording 33 of his team's 451 points in the state title game. Which feels better, the 1,000th point or the state title game?
Honestly, the state championship, you know, it just feels good to have more gold in your trophy case, and thanks to my teammates, you know, it just, that happens. I was feeling it tonight, but thanks to my teammates for giving me the ball, open shots, you know, I got to make them in tough situations.
All right, a much-needed deep breath. We have arrived at the nightcap of Gold Ball Saturday. One more time, let's change classes. Not one more time. We have multiple more times after this. This time up to Class C, and the Mattinock girls taking on the Spruce Mountain Phoenix. How about we start with the Lynx and Addison Sear. She receives the feed under the net, puts it up through the bucket for the tough bucket for the game's first points. Then, after being held scoreless for most of the first quarter, the Phoenix start to come back from down 10 with this quick jumper from Elisa Armandi. The Lynx keep scoring, though, and once again it's Sear, this time recovering the missed basket and laying it up and in for 2. The Phoenix go to the half with just a 4-point deficit thanks to this steal and score from Armandi. She's going the other way, and it's too easy at the basket. Third quarter, tight game. Phoenix pass goes out to Natasha McDonald. Corner 3 up and good. The very next play, Megan House gets a chance in the corner. Cash money. Back and forth we go. But Sear closes it out with this fast break score, and the Lady Lynx win their first ever Class C state title, 54-40.
Obviously, when you work so hard for something all year, and then you finally get to that point, it's so unreal. I feel like I'm about to wake up from a dream any moment now.
Final game of the night in Augusta. Class C boys state title game. Fort Kent taking on the Maranacook Black Bears. The Black Bears are the first on the board. Great ball movement eventually gives Gage Madison a great shot under the net. 2-0 Maranacook. Now, there was no precipitation in the forecast, but it started to rain. Will Murnau goes nuclear. He hits the first three-pointer to put the Warriors on the board. Right back to him the next play. Corner three up and good. Storm is not over yet. One more from Murnau in the corner. Unreal. Aiden Jeffers is going to close out the first quarter with one of his own. And this one goes from the wing. It goes 20-0 run for the Warriors. But second quarter, Matson dodges and weaves his way through the traffic for another bucket, and the Black Bears start their own run. But the three was just falling for the Warriors all night. This time it goes to Mason Pelletier, who drills at the Maranacooks. Jack Fontaine nails a deep three. That would send us to the half. Black Bears make a huge run in the second, bring it within 2 points late in the fourth, but the Warriors hold on to win their first ever Class C state title. Girls Class A state final, the Chevrolet Stags looking for a third gold ball in 3 years, taking on the defensive-minded Broncos of Hamden Academy. Broncos come out smoking. Eve Wiles launches a three, and then Nia Studley is going to rattle home a triple of her own. Hamden Academy up 8-2. Later in the quarter, Stags come back. Freshman Kirsten King with the steal and lays it in. Stags down 2, and Kylie Lamson is going to have the TD pass to King to tie this one up. They're going crazy in Portland. Time winding down in the first. Caitlin Adams is going to knock down a three for the Broncos. They lead by 11 after 1. Second quarter, more of the same. Mallory Lausier from way downtown. Broncos up 17 at the half. Late in the third, Stags are mounting a comeback as Marion Pitney knocks down a jumper. The Broncos lead is down to 10. Late in the fourth, Stags will pull to within 4 on this Kylie Lamson shot. 5 seconds left in regulation. Stags down 2. Lamson lays it in at the buzzer. We're tied at 54, headed to overtime. In overtime, tied at 58. King is taking it strong to the basket for 2 and the lead. Stags come back from down 18 to win a thriller in OT, 63-61, their third gold ball in 5 years.
It's incredibly insane. After last year losing, it's definitely an amazing moment. It's definitely a feeling that you'll never forget.
Now we go to the boys matchup. Portland taking on the Windjammers in a heavyweight tilt for a gold ball. Tied up in the first. Portland center Benjamin Lumani with the beautiful rebound and putback. Dogs by 2. Then Cordell Jones, main football commit there, will take it all the way for the 2 as the Bulldogs are going to lead the Windjammers by 8. They want to talk it over. Portland, they lead it by 7 after 1. Second quarter, Jammers. Tucker Whitley is going to drop a 3-ball. Jammers down 4. Then in transition, beautiful passing here from the Jammers. Kiefer Healy is going to lay it in, and Portland is up only 39-36 at the halftime break. Third quarter, Camden Hills would pull it to within 1, and Portland's Loic Ramonzi knocks down a huge 3. Ramonzi with an absolute circus shot for 2 more right here. The lead is back to 6. Late in the quarter, Lucas Lee Ledgage with a big 3. Bulldogs by 11 heading to the fourth. Late in the fourth, Jones with the TKO. Portland is hoisting gold for the first time since 2017. The Bulldogs over Camden Hills, 76-60. It's sparkling water today too. I actually needed that. I appreciate it. All right, we'll finish up our basketball slate by going back to Friday night where Class B took center stage in Bangor. Let's head to last night in Bangor for those Class B states. The 3-seed Lawrence from the north taking on the 2-seed Oceanside from the south. We pick it up in the first where Oceanside was rolling. Standout freshman Olivia Breen goes to work in the mid-post. She gets the shot to fall. It's 11-2 Mariners early. And Maddie Provost would answer as she did all night. She drives to the hoop and lays it in to make the deficit 11-6. Bulldogs get back in it, but Oceanside would put a stop to that run as Grace Mackey drains the corner 3 to put her team back up 4. They'd build that lead to 7 until the very last seconds of the half. Provost steals it, takes it the other way. The layup is no good, but Amaya Lawyerson has her back. She lays it in, and it's 29-24 Oceanside at the break. But Lawrence would carry that momentum over. They'd go on a run out of the break, led by a couple of Ashley Shores buckets. And all of a sudden, they're up 3. It's Shores again, this time from beyond the arc, and Lawrence takes a 37-32 lead Late in the third, Breen would knock down a three to make it a 2-point game, but Lawrence would make their free throws down the stretch and win the Class B state championship. Here's Provost on what made the difference at the half.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just kind of a now or never speech. Obviously, just a lot of motivation, and we got out here and got it done. It means everything. Obviously, our whole community showed out for us tonight, and that's the least we could do.
Following that game, we've got the Class B boys state title game between the Gardner Tigers and the Yarmouth Clippers. Pick it up with a minute left in the second. Isaac Marcus puts up a three-pointer, and it goes down. Tigers out in front, but he's not done yet at the buzzer. He does it yet again. Marcus is on fire from outside in this game. The Tigers fans absolutely love it. Third quarter, Tiger senior Brady Peacock puts on the moves as he works his way to the basket. What a beautiful finish for two more. But the Clippers start clawing back in this one. It starts with Matthew LeBlanc in this big triple. And the next possession, the honor goes to Owen Orlenes in the corner. Same result. Game is within just a few points. Less than a minute to go. The Tigers send Peacock on a go route. He comes down with it and takes it all the way. Tigers hold on and win their first ever Class B state title, 58-54.
I'm just so proud of these boys. I mean, we work hard every day at practice. And it feels so good to bring this back to Gardner for the first time. I mean, our community is awesome. They've been following us this entire journey. They had so much belief in us, and it just feels awesome.
That will do it for us. Basketball season is over. We hope you continue joining us for coverage here on Fox and ABC. We appreciate you joining us all year long. For now, that's all the time we have for sports. Right back now.
America's strength is human, but AI is being designed to replace us, threatening our jobs, our families, and our way of life. Tell your elected officials to support common sense regulation. Make sure AI works for us, not instead of us.
See the USA in your Chevrolet. America's asking you to call. Drive your Chevrolet through the USA. America's the greatest land of all.
Well-qualified buyers can get 1.9% financing when you finance with GM Financial. Or qualified lessees can get this Silverado pickup for around $399 a month.
Rowell's Garage has been serving customers in the greater Dover-Foxcroft region since 1946. Our goal is not just selling you a vehicle, but also giving you quality service to maintain your vehicle at peak performance. Browse our inventory online or in person. Whether it's a car, truck, or SUV, we can put you in the vehicle that is right for you. Sales, service, and parts. Rowell's Garage. Doing business the right way every day.
You know Matt pretty well. Did he give you any advice?
He said that I should use 26 words or more.
When every word counts.
Trash panda.
Raccoon.
You
had me a trash panda. That was gangster. It pays to choose wisely.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
You just won it. 25 words or less every weekday.
Weekdays at 9 on Fox 22.
AI is being designed to replace American workers. But in America, work is more than just a paycheck. It's pride and purpose. And when real jobs vanish, families and communities get left behind. We should have a say. Protect what's human.
Welcome back, everyone. A new dinosaur species was discovered by local Chicago paleontologists. Take a look at the Spinosaurus mirabilis. Paleontologist Paul Sereno from the University of Chicago led a 20-person team to uncover this fossil of a previously unknown Spinosaurus in Africa. Sereno's first mission took place in 2019 when he found jaw fragments with the help of a local guide. But when they returned as soon as they could in 2022, they made a remarkable discovery. The fish-eating dinosaur featured a striking crest. Sereno suspects the dinosaur may have been buried suddenly by a river.
It was everything it was meant to be. We collected more bone, 50 tons, than probably any team will ever collect under the harshest conditions.
Recreation of the Spinosaurus mirabilis skull will be on display at the Chicago Children's Museum located at Navy Pier beginning today. Now here's meteorologist Devin Biggs with our full weather forecast.
Alrighty, Janessa, thank you very much. That cold weather advisory and small craft advisory will be dropping at around 7 a.m. this morning. Freezing spray advisory expiring this afternoon at around 1 p.m. Wave heights at around 2 to 4 feet according to the buoys, while farther out towards sea at around 3 to even 9 feet. So still a little bit active in some areas. Meanwhile, it's been very clear outside this morning, and that really allowed temperatures to fall. And in fact, you had to look further out toward the south and west for any kind of activity with the system tracking off towards the east. But meanwhile, for us today, we'll be under a partly cloudy sky. You can see some of the activity that will be dissipating later on tonight after some clouds developing, while later on tonight, overall, a mostly clear sky. And as we head towards tomorrow, again, not too bad, some clouds developing during the afternoon. And again, Tuesday night, some snow developing that will continue into parts of Wednesday. And again, once we head towards early Wednesday morning, this will be getting out of here. As for snowfall, here's what we're looking at with that system. A narrow line from Augusta over towards parts of Calais, around 2 to 4 inches possible. Farther off towards the north, around 1 to even 3 inches possible. We'll keep an eye on that as it does develop. But in the meantime, some gusty winds reaching up to about 20 miles per hour today. It does back off later on tonight, but then tomorrow the gusty winds do pick up again, reaching up to about 20 to even 25 miles per hour. So for today, we do have lower 20s, partly cloudy. That southwest wind at about 5 to 10 miles per hour. We may even see some higher gusts up to 20 miles per hour. Overnight, mostly clear, 0 for the overnight low, and that south wind at around 5 miles per hour. And then tomorrow, mid-30s, partly cloudy and breezy, and that southwest wind at about 25 miles per hour. Let's check out your extended forecast, showing a partly cloudy sky for your Wednesday. Highs, look at this, in the upper 40s. And then Thursday, we have partly cloudy, highs in the mid-40s. And then snow chances for your Friday, highs in the mid-30s.
When Blazing Trails located in Lincoln want to know the local forecast, they log on to foxbangor.com. Blazing Trails is Lincoln's #1 trusted dispensary, providing outstanding product and customer service to Eastern and Central Maine.
Ugh, I need new wipers. RockAuto.com. That was easy. That was fast.
All the parts your car will ever need, Rock Auto.
A sharp pain in his chest. He knew it was his heart, but 2 hours from the big city hospital could tragically mean the end. But it wasn't. Thanks to Senator Susan Collins' tireless fight for Maine's rural hospitals. Because of Senator Collins' work, his local hospital had recently received up-to-date diagnostic equipment and upgraded facilities, all paid for with new federal funding. Lives are being saved. Call and thank our Senator Susan Collins for delivering this lifeline for Maine.
It's mowing season. And Bad Boy Mowers has the best lineup in the game. Built to win with more power, advanced engineering, and performance that never quits. Whether you're playing on this field or this field. So this mowing season, raise your game and join the team. Bad Boy, mow with an attitude.
You're never gonna believe who called the Cabin Masters.
Who called us?
Joe Bornstein's office. They have a small project for us.
How small?
Pretty small. It is on the lake.
Got $1 million views.
Well then, let's show them we mean business.
Did you know that Joe Bornstein has helped over 25,000 Maine families?
In all 16 counties?
Yep.
They're wicked good lawyers.
Fighting and winning for injured Mainers for over 50 years.
Good job, guys.
Nice. Injured Mainers know to call Joe.
and her calf were rescued from a Florida river. The Lee County Sheriff's Office captured video of Florida Fish and Wildlife officials rescuing the pair from the Orange River in Fort Myers on Wednesday. While they are the official state marine mammal, manatees are still listed as a threatened species and face danger from boat strikes and toxic red tide algae along the Gulf Coast, but we're very happy that they were both safely rescued. Well, that's all the time that we have left for this morning, but as always, we thank you for joining us. Have a great day, everyone.
Today on 25 Words or Less, you might recognize him as Brad from the sitcom Quintuplets. I mean, it's pretty unlikely, but I guess anything's possible. It's Billy Gardell. And joining Billy are middle school pals Josh and Chauncey. Her acting career proves persistence beats talent roughly once every 50 auditions. It's Jackie Tone. And joining her are returning champions, boyfriend and girlfriend Greg and Jillian. And now, a woman who doesn't understand the life cycle of trees, it's Meredith Vieira.
Welcome to 25 Words or Less. All I know is that I'm sick with allergies. Hey, guys, how are you all?
Hi, Meredith.
Good. Hi.
So well.
Billy Gardell, I feel a little self-conscious because the first time you came on the show this season, I introduced myself to you, totally forgetting that we had met.
Well, first of all, I'm half the man I used to be.
Oh, yeah, you've lost a lot
But
of weight.
I met you at the beginning of Mike and Molly in 2010. You had your own talk show, and you were one of the first press interviews that I did.